Let me begin by saying what a great event this is. I don't think I've ever been to what really is a convocation of alumni and alumni volunteers. And it's been, as Naida was saying, I don't know how many of you had a chance to go to the convocation, the 500th convocation, but it was a really wonderful celebration of university values and university history, and how much the ritual of these convocations has meant to this institution over these nearly 100 years, and explicitly 500 convocations. So I'm glad you could be here this weekend, and glad you could be here today. We have a nice opportunity to talk about SSA following on President Zimmer's remarks just now, where I was pleased that he talked about SSA's contribution to the university over these 100 years, and that I think he was very helpful last year as we were celebrating our centennial, our 100th birthday, and so we have in President Zimmer someone who cares deeply about the kind of engagement that SSA has really been a leader in this institution since its inception. What I'd like to do in the next 10 minutes is to really speak in very simple terms about what we're about in terms of alumni engagement, and in terms of very specifically raising money for the School of Social Service Administration. And the first step in that is to really recognize that this university is a university that has always and continues to care very much about. Do I have a clicker? Okay. To big ideas that what goes on around us, what goes on beyond the ivory tower, what goes on beyond the boundaries of the university is terribly important to what we do. We are really inspired by addressing important social issues in the areas of education, healthcare, so on. And the way we do that is quite simply through research and through education. Don Randall, when I had an opportunity to raise money with Don Randall, put it very simply by saying the best support we can provide, the best money we can raise for the university is support for faculty and support for students. So this is the way we fundamentally support research and education in the university, is by supporting our faculty and by supporting our students. So as I was thinking about today, there are a number of big ideas that are of concern to SSA faculty and students at this point in history. But I thought I'd talk about at least 4 and give you some examples, mostly to generate enthusiasm and excitement for the kind of work you're doing as volunteers. But one area where some really wonderful work is going on is in the area of education. President Zimmer spoke about the Urban Education Initiative, and he also spoke about a more systemic approach to educational reform that the university is engaged in the Woodlawn community. And that work that he made reference to is really the work of SSA faculty. First of all, Charles Payne, on your right, I don't know if you've had a chance to meet him, came to this school from Duke, you know that, a couple of years ago, and he has engaged in, he's originally, his PhD is from Northwestern. He's spent a fair amount of time in Chicago, and he was very pleased to have the opportunity to come back, but he was also very pleased to make his home SSA because of his deep commitment to engaging in the community, to practice as well as theory around issues of education. And he's very quickly come together with the Woodlawn community leadership, primarily many of you know Bishop Brazier, who's had a great deal of influence in the Woodlawn community. And Bishop Brazier had the idea that that the Harlem Children's Zone model, which some of you may be familiar with, this is a model basically in New York, in Harlem, that takes the notion that if you're going to transform a community, you have to do it from a developmental perspective. You have to work with children when they are newborns. Early childhood development is a terribly important part of this model. Work with them through the school system, requires a transformation of the school system, and ensure that they have the supports and they have the family involvement and they have the community structures that enable them to move through the school system and into university and into the workforce. So Charles has, as I said, worked with Bishop Brazier to think about how we can, and the university, how we can implement a similar model in Woodlawn. And in fact, Bishop Brazier is a good friend of President Obama. That's not a surprise, given Obama's experience in this community. And so they had a little session with Arnie Duncan, who was on our visiting committee, now the Secretary of Education, and they took a trip to Washington to talk about this. So I think there'll be a lot of support, not only coming out of the Department of Education, but also support coming out of the university to move this project forward. It's really a very exciting example of the kind of research and practice that our faculty are engaged in. And a similar terribly engaged and influential faculty member in the area of education is Melissa Roderick, whose current projects have focused on the creation of two things, influencing leadership in the Chicago public schools. Many of you know that in recent years, Chicago's really taken a leadership role in bringing, from all over the country really, bringing talented teachers and principals into the school system. And it's become clear that if we are going to sustain this kind of recruitment of talent into the system, we need to provide appropriate supports. And she has worked out an important model called the Network for School Leadership that works with young people who come into to really difficult urban school systems and make sure that they're not alone. What a not uncommon phenomenon is these young idealistic people will come into urban schools and spend 2 or 3 years, but the barriers and the obstacles are so great and they have so little support that they give up and they leave. And so her model is to provide supports for these people so that they can remain and continue to do good work in our urban schools. And she is working very closely with our new head of schools. Arnie Duncan's successor is an SSA graduate and a Booth School graduate, Ron Huberman. There was an article on the front page about his new model for reducing violence in communities through work in the schools. And one of Ron's ideas, and Ron is a very data-driven person, so this is based on research. Some of it is research that Melissa has been involved in. His idea is that in the same way that teachers and principals need support in the schools, community schools need support. So one of the things that he's very interested in terms of the Woodlawn Promise Zone is to create within Woodlawn a community of community schools. That is, make sure that the schools in Woodlawn are working together and supporting one another. Now, this seems like it would be an obvious thing, but it simply doesn't happen. The elementary schools that feed into the high schools rarely work together. The elementary schools that are neighboring rarely work together. And so what we see in the work, the projects, both the research and the training projects that come out of the work of Charles Payne and Melissa Roderick is work that is really on the cutting edge of urban educational reform in Chicago. Very exciting, and needless to say, when students come to SSA, they are really just thrilled to have the opportunity to work with these faculty and other on these projects. So similarly, the president mentioned the university's work in healthcare. We have on the faculty two members of our faculty who are doing important work in this area in terms of their own research and in terms of education. First of all, I'll speak briefly about Harold Pollack and then talk about Colleen Grogan. Both of them are really co-directors of a Center for Health Administration that we have in the School of Social Service Administration, which is a center for faculty whose research is focused on service delivery, both health and social welfare service delivery, and intervention research more generally. This is a center that provides support for faculty who are doing research in this area and is a nice, engaged place for faculty to come together with similar interests. This center also has been the source of a model, an interdisciplinary training model that is getting increasing recognition in the university, and I think makes a lot of sense for this university. And this is our graduate program in health administration studies, which is basically students from the Booth School, from the Harris School, and from SSA are able to come together to get a certificate in health administration studies. I don't know if anyone here a graduate of that program? All right, very good. You can give testimony to this. But what makes this very exciting is that the classroom discussions bring people together with different perspectives, and as a result, they're very rich, and it also builds a network of people who may go into different areas. SSA students tend to go into the healthcare sector and nonprofit agencies. The Booth School folks tend to go and Harris into healthcare consulting or administration of hospitals. But at the end of that time together, we also have physicians who come over to participate in this program from the School of Medicine. It's really a rich and exciting educational experience. From a fundraising point of view, what makes this program successful is that it offers students from each of these programs a stipend of $2,000? Right, annually, which is, I think, critical, really, for capturing the attention. The interest of students from all of these schools is there, but by offering, the stipend is really an organizing framework, and by offering students a chance to compete for the stipend as a way to participate in the program, that resource is critical to making this program work. We are just moving forward in terms of what the students have been long interested in helping us think about, and that is to globalize or internationalize our program in the same way the university is pushing to internationalize its program. And we certainly hope to leverage on the university's interest in building these campuses, first in China and also in India. But our program will also have other components. As President Zimmer was saying, you have to think about what does globalization mean for you. And we at SSA, being part of the University of Chicago, we spent several years saying, well, what does globalization mean for us? I think at this point we have a pretty clear idea, and we're implementing a program that involves not only offering some programming in the new campuses that the university will be putting together, but also will include block field placement, so our students can go to India. We're working on that at the moment, or other places around the world to do field work. It also involves exchanges of scholars. We hope to be bringing in international scholars who can really infuse some information, excitement into our discussions in the school. There are many universities who would like very much to have our faculty spend a little time with them around the world, and so we hope to organize that process better than we have in the past as part of this internationalization. And finally, I want to talk about another exciting and interesting area of development, which is the development of the public and nonprofit management program. As you all know, SSA has really always been a leader in terms of providing the talent to run and organize our nonprofit agencies, not only in Chicago, but really around the world. We have Colleen Jones, our alum, who is Vice President of United Charities now, Metropolitan Family Services, a real leader in Chicago and in the nonprofit world. And also, this area has been given an infusion of talent with the hiring of a new faculty member named Scott Allard, who you see on your left, who came to SSA last year with a great mission, sense of mission, and a lot of energy around building on the leadership that SSA has always provided in this area. So his notion, and he's starting with some workshops. He's partnering with some of our nonprofit leaders. We're putting together a blue ribbon committee of our alums who are nonprofit management leaders, particularly those who are working in philanthropy, to help us think about not only the substantive direction, but also how we can more effectively raise money to support this program. Because we know from the GFAP program, as well as from all of our work with students, that enabling them, having the resources to provide the scholarships that they need to take advantage of an SSA education and to pursue their interests, whether it's in nonprofit management or health administration is just crucial to the future of our programs and our continuing ability to bring the best of brightest to the school and give them the opportunity to contribute in the world. So, any questions?
How are the public health programs and the education programs being marketed to the public? So not only do the scholars or students and so on know about what we're doing, but the community, how are we touching them?
Well, you know, this is an important question and something that we've been learning about a lot, really, since Steve has come to SSA. And so our communications program is really organized around making sure that these exciting developments are known not only to alumni but to a broader audience. And at this point, we're working on strategies. I think our magazine is one resource for that. We'd like very much to get the word out through electronic mechanisms, through the alumni blast. But we could definitely use input and guidance from all of you in terms of how to do that better and enhance it even further.
Because, I mean, I'm just excited because I'm like, this is great. You know, the people who need to, who are going to use it are going to be directly affected by it. You know, how much are we connecting with them, and what can we do to increase that? Because that would be something that they would probably get excited about, too, if they knew all the work that we were doing.
Well, you know, SSA has been for 100 years an important intellectual, professional resource, not only to alum, to the world. And so that, how we do that better is a critically important challenge for us right now. So your input will be useful. Anything else? Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jeanne. Good morning. I'm Steve Gilmore. I'm the Associate Dean for External Affairs for SSA. And as Jeanne mentioned, I arrived at SSA about 3 years ago from Northwestern University. And I arrived at a moment, an important moment for SSA, right on the cusp of its centennial celebration, which gave us a terrific opportunity to re-energize our communications program, to talk about the importance of alumni engagement, and also to talk about the importance of philanthropy to the life of the school. It's absolutely impossible to separate charitable giving and philanthropic investment from the work that's done at SSA. In fact, the history of the school was founded as a result of philanthropy. The school's original name was the School of Civics and Philanthropy. And philanthropists, legendary philanthropists of Chicago and elsewhere, recognized that the mission and the work of SSA was important to the city of Chicago, to American society, and to the world. And they made SSA the destination for their philanthropy. And over the 101 years of the history of the school, we have reached out to alums, but also to philanthropists of our society, to invite them to invest in our people, programs, and facilities that support that fine work. The philanthropy that we raise for SSA, next slide, thanks, is invested in faculty work, is invested, and much of the work that Jeanne talked about, the collaborations outside of campus that involve social and public institutions, and the linking of the research of faculty, the learning and service of students with real needs of the communities. Fundraising lubricates just about everything that the school does on a day-to-day basis. So it helps to provide students with access to an SSA education. We provide more than $4 million a year in tuition assistance for our students. Roughly 80 cents out of every dollar that we raised is directed toward student assistance. Tuition at SSA these days, some of you on the Alumni Board know this data, is about $35,000 once you total up all the other fees in addition to tuition. And so it's an important aspect of the operations of the school. I want to, I think you have in your handouts, so I won't belabor, given our time constraints, I won't belabor the data here, but suffice it to say that we do fundraising in a manner that tries to encourage alumni and others to give annually at the highest possible levels that they can give. That encouragement takes the form of direct mail appeals, telemarketing appeals on behalf of student phone callers, volunteer-based fundraising, alums reaching out to peer alums, either because of a reunion milestone or just because alums feel it's important to reach out to others to encourage their peer alums to support the school. And considerable major gift work that Jeanne is involved with, as well as myself. And then faculty grant seeking. The faculty are very ambitious and proactive in seeking grant support from public entities as well as private foundations and in some cases philanthropic family foundations. So these mechanisms are ongoing, and in the final year of Jeanne's tenure as dean, Jeanne neglected to mention in her remarks that she is completing her third 5-year term as dean of SSA, and that will conclude this June. And she has actually had the second longest tenure of any dean at SSA. Yeah, I think that deserves a round of applause. Only eclipsed by the founding dean of the school, Edith Abbott. So, and so beyond that impressive duration of leading the school, there's been really an extraordinary thumbprint that Jeanne has left on the institution, and philanthropy is one of those thumbprints. And so, in the final year of Jeanne's tenure, she'll be traveling the country and visiting with alumni, especially benefactors, and thanking them for their support of the school and encouraging them to continue their support of SSA. We have had, from time to time, we've had alums involved with helping us reach out to their peer alums, as I said earlier, and we'd like to encourage all of you to do that, and we'll certainly assist and facilitate those efforts. We think that there's no replacement for alums reaching out to other alums to encourage them to provide annual support for SSA. And so we're prepared to ask you to do that and to say that we will help you select, the audience group that you might want to reach out to. It could be one person, it could be 5 people, it could be 8 people. We would actually recommend a smaller group because we'd like the outreach to be as personalized and intimate as possible. And we could help you write a letter, make a follow-up, encourage you to make a follow-up phone call, send an email after a letter, just to encourage alums to continue to support the school. December is usually the time in which most of our gifts are received, and we would certainly like, if you're interested in doing this, like you guys to begin doing that before December 1st. We're seeking both broad-based support for SSA as well as major gift support for the school. Our annual giving program is increasing modestly year over year. It's a very modest increase, but we haven't been able to break through that $300,000 threshold of annual giving and that hit that 20% of alumni supporting the school each year. And so those are two very specific goals that we would like to accomplish, and we recognize that we're in the best position to accomplish that if we have teams of alumni reaching out to other alumni to help supplement and complement our student phone callers and our other appeals that come to alums.
Can I just insert, we had our visiting committee, another important constituent stakeholder group for the school. We had our meeting yesterday, and we had a productive discussion of fundraising. And I mentioned that we have about 6,000 over the 100 years. We have 6,000 living alums, and about 1,600 of those are donors. And so it's been very important to me to sign every thank you note that for every one of those gifts. And as I signed those, and certainly we're very grateful for that level of participation, but we do get a lot of $20 gifts and some $5 gifts. And one of our strategies at this point, and I think this is the case for all nonprofits that rely so heavily on fundraising, is to raise the aspirations of every donor and ask them if they can take their $5 gift or their $20 gift or their $1,000 gift and do something specifically more in the next year. And one of our visiting committee members, Mary Whitten Green, said, you know, she's a very generous to the university and a number of other groups. She said, I don't, if someone calls me with a service, I don't listen, they don't get my attention. But if one of my peers on the visiting committee or in the organization, or in this case in the alumni, calls me up and says, you know, your support's so critical for us and we're so grateful for your loyalty, could you double your gift this year? That's the way that you make progress. We haven't really done that so effectively so far, but I think that's the next.
Right, that's the next phase. We haven't fully, although I should say that last year during our centennial year, for the first time, thanks to Jinnie's leadership and her predecessor, Molly Baltman, president of the Alumni Association, the SSA Alumni Association, we hit 100% of the Alumni Board giving to SSA, and that was the first time we had done that, and so we hope to sustain that year over year, and to grow that to fully harness the alum peer-to-peer outreach, as Jeanne said. And so this slide concludes my remarks with where I began, that it's impossible to separate philanthropy from the good work that's being done at SSA. It's impossible to separate it from the students, the terrific students who are coming to us with great experience and depth of background and terrific talent and potential. It's impossible to separate it from helping them have great field placements and work with our field placement partners, more than 200 in number each year. New program developments like the international program that Jeanne talked about, faculty research that's so important to the academic program, to the research agenda, as well as to our communities, and new program directions for the academic program. So with that, I'll conclude my remarks on fundraising. Take any questions that you might have right now. Yes, Betty?
Is 20% public schools contributing high, low? I mean, I find it appalling.
It's a good question. It seems low. If we compare to other professional schools across the University of Chicago, we're actually right in the middle in terms of alumni participation, where we are right now. If we were to achieve 20%, we would be, beyond the middle. If you compare it across other graduate schools of social work at other universities, it's high, actually. It's higher. We're not satisfied with it. But it's not horrible. It's not something to be embarrassed about, but certainly there's great potential there. I should say that SSA has been, as I said earlier, has been fundraising from the very beginning. For 101 years, philanthropy has been part of the school's DNA, really. And so we've had a head start on some of our peers in the industry.
Your comments resonate with me as well, and I thought maybe I'll shift a little bit of what I was going to talk about, because I see the Professional Development Program, which we commonly call PDP, as a great bridge between the school and the community, between our faculty and their research and the practitioners on the ground, whether they are clinicians or administrators, of how SSA is seen beyond the walls of the institution to really be out in the field. And I think that as you were talking, it made me think about PDP in another way. In terms of big ideas, we always talk about at SSA that they are pressing and complex social problems and how to address those. And our professional development program looks to aid, as I mentioned, both clinicians and program administrators, perhaps to take those problems and break them down into concrete ways of how we make a difference. But I think it would be interesting to look at how we track of what impact that has. We think about the school as graduating students who go forth to do the good work, and the way that we view the professional development program is we tell our students we are a resource for you throughout your career. When you walk into the doors of the school until the day you retire and beyond, you can always come back to SSA to look to aid in your professional development, in your networking, and in your professional success. And on a personal note, I remember for me, I'm not a graduate of SSA, and I think one of the challenges for professional schools is that most people tend to give to their alma mater of their undergraduate school. And in part because they feel a sense of community. Maybe they lived on campus, they have friends and such. But your professional school is really, in my opinion, the direction in which you take your career. Because I have a friend who was an English major, an undergraduate, and has worked in the financial industry. And as she said, I didn't touch a math book during school, but it was beyond that it really shaped my career. And I think that that's another way to reach out to our alumni, to look back to the school of helping them with that. I realized when we set up the slides, I'm going to go back to our goals and instead give you a basic understanding of what the professional development program is. We are a continuing education provider. We are licensed by the state for social workers, marriage and family therapists, and professional counselors. If you are licensed in Illinois in one of those categories, you are required to have 30 hours of continuing education every 2 years. But like SSA, the professional development program runs on 2 tracks, both the clinical, so those who are required to keep their continuing education hours current, and those who are policy makers or program administrators or managers. So the professional development program looks to mirror the curriculum, but also expound upon it in terms of going into issues that might have been addressed in the curriculum in more depth, or looking at problems that or issues that weren't addressed in our curriculum. But we also, if you're a graduate of SSA, you know that your career is not linear. So you may have been a clinical major, maybe looked at that you were going to be a clinical social worker, and then your agency thought you were great at supervising a couple of colleagues, and you become a program administrator, and you go on to more of a management track, and you realize, I didn't take that class, so you can come back to SSA to further your professional skills. But because we're a state provider for continuing education, we extend beyond our graduates. And so our graduates comprise about 25% of our attendees of professional development programs. We are working to increase that number. So it's another way for alumni to become involved. We've started talking at orientation so that students, as soon as they come to SSA, know about us, think about us, and remember us when they graduate. We offer, as I mentioned here, is in your slides, so I'll just talk briefly. We have 3 series throughout the year: a fall, which runs from mid-September to late November, a winter-spring, which is mid-February through early May, and a summer series from June to July. And it really extends. It used to be a summer institute. One of our faculty members, Karen Tigesser, who's a founding person with SSA, we just began to extend beyond this a number of years ago into programming throughout the year. We go beyond Hyde Park. A number of our offerings are here, but we also are in Evanston, downtown Chicago, at our Gleacher Business School location. Northbrook, and last year began going to Oak Brook. We're also looking, based on feedback from attendees, of extending to perhaps a couple other suburban areas. In touching upon a couple of the goals that were mentioned before, the certificate programs, we have an advanced psychodynamic program, but we're looking to develop a nonprofit management program in conjunction with our professor that would be a different scale than what the curriculum program is looking at for certificate. But we're also looking at an older adults program. It's a growing demographic in the United States and a growing number of work, and funding is going that area, but ironically not a large number of social work students look to working with older adults, and so we think that's an opportunity with adult and older education. Substance use is another area that a couple of our faculty have talked about, perhaps developing some specialized tracks, and school social work, touching upon that education component too. So the professional development program, we obviously evidence-based is the foundation of the school, so we look to provide concrete offerings in a number of different categories. And as I mentioned, clinical issues, so we will address, and the brochure that I gave you is from our fall offerings. You can go to our website to look at the offerings we've had over the past few years. But we'll address topics that affect children, couples, the LGBT community, older adults, and then a variety of different clinical issues addressed with that. Management from fundraising and financial planning, strategic collaborations. We had a nonprofit mergers workshop this summer, which is a new issue emerging in the field. So going back to our goals, increasing our enrollment every year. There are new social workers, there are new people moving to the Chicagoland area that we would like to obviously increase our numbers. There's approximately 19,000 social workers in Illinois. It doesn't break down in terms of how many are in the Chicagoland area, which is primarily where our PDP audience comes from, but we serve about 1,100 to 1,300 people throughout the year. So some of our goals as well as strategic partnerships. This can be both within the university. We are looking at collaborations, which in part we already exist with Chapin Hall when we look at topics that address child welfare, with the Booth School in Harris when we look at management issues and policy. I just had a conversation yesterday with the Dean of the Divinity School, and we talked about faith-based initiatives as well as a number of joint graduates of our schools and a common interest in social justice. The medical center in terms of ethics, and there's a large number of hospital social workers who come to the professional development program. I mentioned the specialized tracks that we are looking at for those who are in school social work or working with older adults, and also working with organizations, and I think this goes back to that issue of how we tie to the community, of going to large nonprofits, of going to social service agencies, government agencies. We've had conversations in the past with DCFS of how we can help improve their staff services, of whether it's program evaluation or more on-the-ground training of what types of workshops and trainings that we can help provide. And online registration goes to both customer service, but also addressing, are there some offerings we could have that possibly would go to more of a web-based format to go beyond the Chicagoland area that we have. And so how do we do this, and what can our volunteers, such as yourself in the room, do? Get the word out about SSA. If you're not on our mailing list, or primarily if you're not on our email mailing list, I think that's one of the easiest ways when you get an announcement from our office, here's our upcoming workshops, to forward to colleagues, to forward to fellow alumni, to forward to a human resources manager. For our brochure, which will be changing in format a little bit in this coming year, of having a circulation and also letting us know, I get your flyer and I think your workshops are great, but my colleague doesn't, or my program administrator doesn't. Can you make sure that we're notified of what you are offering? Feel free to contact me if you know of an organization, or if you think that we could provide assistance. We were contacted by one of our most active alums last year, Joe Lowndy, who was contacted by a colleague of his who had a crisis in his organization and said, can you help? And so we reached out to them to provide assistance to their staff and to the head of that organization to say we can be here as a resource to you. Also consider a proposal if you have a background that we talked at the Alumni Board a few weeks ago, and a couple people mentioned that they do training for their organization. So if you know of good teachers, if you know of good people who could facilitate a workshop, to refer them to us also. And topic areas, we're always open to, here's an emerging issue, here's something that I'm seeing in the field, or I think this needs to be addressed. Would you consider developing a workshop on this topic? And we mentioned field instructors because they are a key resource to the school and a central mentor to our students who are supervising current students in the field to help them with their training on both administrative and clinical issues. Yes?
I think we should be
Yeah.
concluding soon.
Mm-hmm. So I'm here afterward if you have any questions, so please feel free to contact me.
The Alumni Board essentially is looking to get very involved with the school so we can become more aware of the programs that are being offered, so we can find ways that we can support the school that's a lot more effective and efficient and very specific. Our biggest focus this year and for the next 2 years is to really identify ways that we can engage our alumni that are meaningful to them. So I loved the idea that you brought up with being connected to the community, because a lot of our alumni, as we talk to them, feel very disconnected. So having a more robust type of presentation would be so helpful for us, because even as we connect with them, we're learning that they want to volunteer. They don't mind giving money. People find time for the things they want to do and find money for the things they want to buy. So as long as we feel that we're still needed by the school and that the school is more inclusive of more non-traditional social work roles and what we do outside of what maybe we were trained in, I think that there's a lot more that we can do to shift the paradigm, I think, in the next 100 years. So we're very, very excited about the first year of the next century, and we're looking to do some really good things with the school. So.
Thank you all. If you have any questions about any of the information that has been presented today, you can contact me through alumni@ssa.uchicago.edu, and that information is also included on our volunteer handout, as well as